Greetings. This devotion is for the 29th of June, and our reading comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 1 through 5. Now, it is not necessary for me to write you about the ministry of the saints, for I know in your eagerness, which is the subject of my boasting about you to the people of Macedonia, saying that Achaia has been ready since last year, and your zeal has stirred up most of them. But I am sending the brothers in order that our boasting about you may not prove to have been empty in this case, so that you may be ready as I said you would be. Otherwise, if some Macedonians come with me and find that you are not ready, we would be humiliated, to say nothing of you, in this undertaking. So I thought it necessary to urge the brothers to go on ahead to you and arrange in advance for this bountiful gift that you have promised, so that it may be ready as a voluntary gift and not as an extortion. So, what we have in this section of 2 Corinthians is, the church at Corinth and in general, much of the early church at this point, this is a little later in early church development, was struggling with who is in charge, who is the authority, who is the one that they could trust with the gospel message. There was very little to no structure in the early church, and that makes sense if you remember that the early belief in, and this is now beginning to change, but the early belief in the church was that they were going to see Jesus return. This wasn't going to be a long time. They weren't going to have to establish a church for any length of time, that this was going to happen quickly. And so they didn't have to worry about any of these structures, any of these anythings, really, because Jesus was coming tomorrow. Right? So Paul sends the brothers. Now, these are unnamed. They may relate back to Titus. It depends on the scholar that you read. Problem is, and if you read before, you get some of this, and after, of course, they wanted Paul. And there was this attempt to send the brothers ahead, to assure them that they were well trained and they would represent him well. The Corinthians had to be assured that other people besides Paul would be well qualified. In the end, there had to be a trust in Paul, that the people he sent would lead them well. That's kind of how it works, right? There's a sense that we all have to trust that our bishops are going to lead us well. There is a sense, and I know by you, that there is a trust that I would lead you well. It is how this works, isn't it? So we pray for leaders, for myself, that we are good by your trust, that we do what we need to do to lead you well. It is by God's grace we trust, and it is by God's grace only that we move forward. Join me in Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. The Lord makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. You restore my soul, O Lord, and guide me along right pathways for your name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.